Hey gang, I got an offer for you today from LinkedIn. As business to business marketers, your needs are unique. B2B buying cycles are long and your customers face incredibly complex decisions. Isn't it time you had a marketing platform built specifically for you? LinkedIn ads empower marketers with solutions for you and your customers. LinkedIn ads allow you to build the right relationships, drive results, and reach your customers in a respectful environment. On LinkedIn, you have direct access to build relationships with decision makers. Of the 875 million users on the network, 180 million are senior level executives. 10 million are C-level executives. You will also be able to drive results with targeting and measuring with their tools built specifically for B2B. And best of all, they work. Audiences exposed to brand messages on LinkedIn are 6 times more likely to convert. LinkedIn ads also rank #1 for security, community, and ad experience as part of the Business Insider's Digital Trust Study. Make B2B marketing everything it can be and get a $100 credit. It's a $100 credit on your next campaign. Go to linkedin.com/MPN to claim your credit. It's linkedin.com/MPN. Terms and conditions apply. Entrepreneurs Enigma is a podcast for the ups and downs of entrepreneurship. It's about the wins and the fails that we all face being entrepreneurs, and how we learn from adversity. Every week I talk to a different entrepreneur with a story to tell. I'm Seth Goldstein. Come with me on the journey. This is Entrepreneurs Enigma. Let's get started. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Entrepreneurs Enigma podcast. I'm Seth. I'm here with Sean Weisbrot of We Live to Build. He is an entrepreneur who is American but lives abroad. He's literally, I think the last time we talked, you said you've been to quite a few countries. You lived in
36.
China for 5 years or some
10.
crazy amount of time?
10.
10. Oh my God. Oh my gosh. So you can obviously speak Mandarin and get
是的，
around.
我会
What's
说
that?
中文啊。
Oh, show off. There you go. And they make fun of you with your pronunciation?
No, when I speak to Chinese people, if they can't see my face, they think I'm Chinese.
Ooh, there you go. That's impressive. Did you study in college a little bit?
None. I arrived in China with no knowledge of China at all.
Oh, that's kind of brave.
Yeah. And I moved to Wuhan, of all places.
Oh, wow. But well before the pandemic and all that stuff. Because
Yeah,
Wuhan has
2008.
a big lab there, and it's a big city. People don't realize that. I mean, yeah, they think it all of the farmers market and stuff like that, but it's a big city down there. So
It was
over there.
huge. Yeah.
Start back. Have you always wanted to be an entrepreneur, like growing up?
Nope.
Nope.
Had no interest in it whatsoever.
So what happened?
Living in China made me an entrepreneur.
Really? That's
Mm.
kind of interesting because you think that like the way their society is, I guess more recently they want entrepreneurship, but it's kind of goes against the whole communist grain, doesn't it?
Well, after Mao Zedong died in the late 70s, Deng Xiaoping took over and
Hmm.
worked to open up the country. So while over the last 40, 50 years, there has continued to be no political freedoms, they worked really hard to make economic freedoms possible. And so as a
Ah.
result, entrepreneurship was encouraged.
Oh, so what was the impetus over there that made you want to be an entrepreneur? I mean, since you didn't have any desire to, you went to China. So,
Yeah, so my major was in psychology. So I was trained to be curious, although really I was trained by my mom as a young kid to be curious.
yeah.
And so I think maybe the psychology was an extension of that curiosity to understand
Hmm.
humans. And something that people do when they live somewhere else or when they travel somewhere else is they tend to compare their experience in front of them to what they know of the world.
Oh, yeah.
And so what I ended up doing naturally was looking at what I was experiencing as a customer of different businesses in China and an
Okay.
employee of different businesses in China.
Oh,
And
so you worked for Chinese companies over there or American companies over there first. You didn't just go and get slapped like, "I'm gonna be an entrepreneur now."
no, I was a teacher the first 5 years, and I was working for Chinese companies there of different, some were private schools, some were public schools, some were kindergartens, some were universities, so all different kinds of students and topics. But throughout the process of living there, the first 5 years and learning Mandarin, I became really curious about how they do business and compared it to my experience back in the States and started to
Mm.
see if you were to be doing this in America, maybe you would do it like this instead of like this. And maybe that would
Mm,
maybe make people want to be your customer for longer, or maybe you want to spend
that's
more. And
awesome.
it
Yeah.
just naturally started like permeating my consciousness.
And then so the first 5 years, you did the 10-year stint in China. First 5 years, you're working in different schools, teaching all different kinds of subjects. You learn Mandarin. So then what did you do when you decided to go out on your own? What was the first entrepreneurial venture?
Well, so the first 5 years I was in Wuhan,
Okay.
and then I said, I like China. I want to stay. I want to get into business. I don't want to stay in Wuhan. I don't think there's
Mhm.
an opportunity here for me for that. I think I've learned and done everything I can in central China. So I moved to
Okay.
Shenzhen in the south, which is next to Hong Kong.
Yes, and that's and for
And
those who don't know, I can't say Shenzhen is where a lot of the components are made for Apple and all those. Like you hear that in the tech news a lot. So
correct. Um, so I had gotten a job as an HR manager of a school there because it was the
okay.
easiest way to find work was to stay in the industry,
Yeah,
but just stop
absolutely.
being a teacher. And I was fired from that job actually because I had gotten a concussion after about 9, 10 months. So
You got fired because you got a concussion.
yeah, it was a really nasty concussion that made it
Oh,
difficult. I was dizzy and I had all sorts of problems for a year and a half. It was really like not fun.
and you were working in HR for this, and you got fired for a disability.
Yes, that it's China.
Different culture. Exactly.
So I spent the next 6 months really just like trying to rehabilitate myself, and I
Yeah.
ended up writing a few books. And
Oh, there you go.
yeah, they're about Chinese culture and American culture, and kind of from the lens of my experience and
Yeah,
um,
I'm sure fascinating. Yeah, we'll link to them in the show
psychology and all
notes.
that.
Yeah.
So the first thing I got into as an entrepreneur, so basically when I got fired, my first thought was, well, I speak Chinese, I'm in China. I'm confident of my desire to be an entrepreneur because of the fact that I've been like looking at it, thinking about it, talking about it for the last 5 years.
Yeah.
So I really need to not allow other people to be in control of my financial future anymore
Mhm.
because I got fired for something that wasn't my fault. Why I don't want to be anyone's employee ever again. I'm not going to
Yeah,
let that
they
happen.
kind of turn the switch for you. Yeah. We're gonna take a quick break, hear from our sponsors, and get right back to the show.
Hey, it's Jason Falls of the Marketing Podcast Network. You know we're trying to bring you the greatest education opportunities out there. We've got another one for you, folks. The Creator Economy Expo, CEX 2023, is for content creators and entrepreneurs interested in building and growing their content-first businesses without relying on social platforms. This year's Creator Economy Expo features 10 amazing keynote speakers and over 30 in-depth breakout sessions. Join 500-plus bloggers, podcasters, authors, newsletter writers, speakers, coaches, and consultants and freelancers at the learning and networking event for content creators. Don't be left out. Plan to attend this year, May 1st through the 3rd, 2023 in Cleveland, Ohio. Register now and get early bird pricing, and the Marketing Podcast Network has a special offer for you. You can get $100 off using the coupon code MPN100. That's MPN100. Head over to cex.events to register. cex.events, code MPN100. Hey there, it's Jason with the Marketing Podcast Network. Real quick, I want to make sure you know that the world's leading B2B Marketing Expo is returning to the Los Angeles Convention Center on March 21st and 22nd. It's high time we got back together to learn, see the latest technologies and solutions, and network, right? Join thousands of marketing professionals just like you to learn from over 250 industry expert speakers, educational masterclasses, and over 300 exhibitors. And this year, your ticket also gets you into the Sales Innovation Expo and the Marketing and Advertising Expo. So it's like 3 conferences in one. It's March 21st and 22nd at the Los Angeles Convention Center. Go to b2bmarketingexpo.us to register. That's b2bmarketingexpo.us. The Marketing Podcast Network is a proud partner of the B2B Marketing Expo for 2023. We'll see you in LA.
Yeah. So getting fired basically did that for me. And then about 6 months after my accident, I ended up deciding to finally go out and be social again because I was struggling with communication with people. Like I was struggling with a lot of things. And I thought, I need
Yeah.
to get out of my house. I need to be social. I need to just get through this and so that I can
Mhm.
heal. And the first day I ended up doing that, I went to a picnic with some friends, and there was an American guy there, and he was talking about this cool event he was trying to put together. And I said, I got nothing going on. I would love to help you put it together. And it was a massive success. It was an offline speech event. We had 100 people attending off of
Wow.
very little preparation and marketing.
Yeah.
We even had a room for 40 people. So like 60 of them were standing because we just couldn't fit everyone in the room.
Hey, but they always say bigger room, smaller room for a bigger crowd. They never say don't the bigger room for a smaller crowd because you don't get the interaction you need.
So that event was so successful that I decided to continue doing it. He decided that he had a full-time job and other responsibilities, so he didn't want to continue.
Yeah.
But he said basically, if you want to continue with this, it's yours. I'm giving it to you. So
Awesome.
I had just started dating someone. She was Chinese, and I said, "Hey, do you want to do this with me?" She had been to the first event,
Yeah.
and she was like, "Yeah, this is amazing." So we ended up turning it into, oh well, it was an attempt at a business. I went almost bankrupt running it, but that's a different
Yeah.
story.
Well, it's a different story. Yeah. But that's an entrepreneur journey there. That sometimes it happens. So yeah.
So we ended up getting picked up by the Chinese government. They gave us a private venue. So the second venue was a library. We had 300 people show up. The third, so that was 1 month later.
Oh
The
wow.
the next month we had about 400 something people. The next month we had 600 people. The next month we had 700, and we were never able to fit more people in a room than that. We just never had a bigger event. So we month after month we were hitting
That's pretty
700
big.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty big.
So in the third month, the government started, they came to us, they offered their support, they gave us media coverage and all sorts of great benefits, like putting me on TV and radio and all
Wow.
sorts
So
of,
Roy put your Mandarin to the test.
yes, working with the government really forced my Mandarin to step up a level or two in a
Yeah, I
very
bet.
short time
Yeah.
because they didn't speak English and they weren't going to start learning. And
Ah, exactly.
And when you're put on radio and TV, there is no delay. There is no like, let's pre-record this and publish. Like, no, like you have to, like, they're not going to cut it.
You're gonna be on point. Yeah.
You
You could be
have to
on
be
point
on point.
or be off point, and then have it show. Exactly. Yeah.
And they were having me do private training, private government trainings, private corporate trainings, private
Wow.
speeches, all of it paid. The speeches were in Mandarin, the trainings were in English.
Okay.
And yeah, it was an incredible, incredible lifestyle. Like
I
this was
bet.
several years, and China was my home. I still
Yeah.
love it very much. I still miss it. It's been 4
Oh,
years since I went back, but I left 5 years ago.
okay.
And that was my first experience with entrepreneurship.
And so, what do you like most about being an entrepreneur? I mean, I guess not having the man or the woman or the person kind of define your income status and stuff, but like, what now that you've been an entrepreneur for longer? What do you like the most about being an entrepreneur?
I like that whatever idea I have, I can either make it happen or not make it happen. It's up to me. It's
Yeah.
not just about determining how much money I want to make. It's about determining what do I want to do with my time? How am I going to apply myself? What skills am I interested and want to learn? And then just challenging myself to learn them as I build something that I'm interested in. And if it picks up, then, build a team and put them around it. And
So what's the scariest thing? What keeps you up at night? I mean, especially if you have a team.
well, the most recent thing that scared me and kept me having panic attacks for a very long time was
Oh no.
the fact that I had investors who promised money and weren't able to provide it in the time frame that they had promised that we needed it. And so we had to shut down the company and fire the
Oh.
whole team because there was a budget gap that was
Oh.
large enough that we couldn't save ourselves despite trying.
Oh. But that's the perils of entrepreneurship and being a startup. You know,
Yes.
this crazy stuff happens, and it's not. And most of the time, it's not on the entrepreneur. It's external influences and stuff.
Well, I can tell you my team definitely blames me.
Oh, that stinks.
Look, as an entrepreneur, I look at it this way. The CEO has a few responsibilities. One is
Mhm.
have a vision and make sure that the team understands that vision.
Mhm.
The second thing is make sure that the team has what they need to get the vision to go. The third
Yeah.
is make sure there's enough money to keep the people fed,
Yeah. So I
right?
guess it falls on you. Yeah.
And so the way they see it is I gave them a vision, I gave them the tools, but then I didn't give them all of the money they needed to make it continue going. So
The buck
that's
stops
on
with
me.
you. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, but knowing that, I mean, I guess you've started up again. You're doing your own podcast. So let's talk about that a little bit. What's your podcast all about? Is it about like fill us in on that?
Well, so I started the podcast a little more than 2 years ago.
Okay.
And the reason was my team wanted to be more visible on social media because they said CEOs are required now to kind of have a public facing
Mhm.
profile so that investors know who you are and potential customers and potential employees know who you are.
Yeah.
And I said, I don't want to tweet. And they're like, well, go be a guest on people's podcasts. And I said, great idea. I'm going to make my own podcast
Yeah. Oh, I was gonna say I've gotta be a guest. You mean I might be my own?
because I had learned several things from my event management company,
Yeah.
which was when you are the founder of something, everyone wants to know you. You're
Mhm.
special, you're important, you're unique. When you're
Mhm.
a guest on someone else's thing, yeah, you're just a guest,
That's true.
right?
That is very true.
And
Yeah.
and then as well, if you don't own the platform, you have to convince other people to allow you to be a guest, and then you have to wait for them to be able to publish it if they decide to publish it, because I've had people record with me and then never publish it and ghost me, which is strange.
Ooh, that's not nice.
But on
I
top
won't do
of
that
that,
to you. I will not do that to you.
I know you won't.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Um, but on top of that, you have to rely on their ability to edit so that you don't sound horrible.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true.
Because I have interviewed people who they're not native speakers. And
Mhm.
of course I understand not everyone's a native English speaker and I'm not going to demand them to speak like you or I.
Yeah.
But I don't want to publish something where there's a million buts and ands and ums and duplication.
Exactly, and when you can't edit, it gets to a point where it's impossible to edit.
Oh, but I did.
Oh, no.
Because the first 102 episodes were audio only, so I could edit anything. And
Right.
so I would spend sometimes 2 or 3 hours editing it so that they sounded amazing.
Wow. That's dedication right there.
I wanted my guests to sound good, and I wanted my audience to listen to the entire episode. And if
Yeah.
there's too much of those linguistical issues, they're going to miss out on the actual message
Yeah,
being
they're gonna
conveyed
just
because
give
they're
up,
too busy
yeah.
being distracted.
And they're just gonna say, "This is too much energy, I don't wanna listen to it." Exactly, so
So started a bit over 2 years ago, and the goal was to be more visible, but at the
yeah.
same time, knowing that two of the things I'm really passionate about are psychology and entrepreneurship. So I thought I can put a little bit of my own knowledge and experience of psychology into the podcast in asking the guests questions about their own psychology, how they think about their businesses, how they think about themselves, how they've changed themselves, what they've learned from running their businesses, these kinds of things.
Absolutely.
And this makes it a really interesting podcast for a lot of people because you don't normally get to hear that personal side of things. Sometimes you
Mhm,
do, but it's not very common.
mhm.
Um, and so I made it so that all of my guests are either they fundraised over $1 million or they're grossing over $1 million a year.
That's a good
Um,
niche to go after, yeah.
the
Kinda things
reason,
that
sorry, you're gonna say?
no, keep that in that realm because it kinda makes it special. It's not just another entrepreneur's podcast.
Exactly. Anyone can be an entrepreneur, but it takes
Yeah.
someone special to grow a company that can do over $1 million a year in revenue. And I knew that the company I was running was going to be forced to grow way larger than that. And
Mhm.
so I knew that I didn't have s- uh, A round experience, B round. Like I didn't have that kind of stuff, but some of
No.
these people would, and I wanted to learn from them. So
Mhm.
although the original goal was to be visible, I took it as an opportunity to get a ton of free mentorship from awesome entrepreneurs who were way more ahead in their journey than I was.
Oh, it's the best way to do it, yeah.
And that's what I got out of them. And because I learned how to become an interviewer, I was able to get really great advice from people and really get to the heart of what they do and the soul of who they
Mm.
are.
Mhm.
And I think through the editing I've done, I've been able to capture that quite well.
That's fantastic. So here's a question for you. What is the most important thing to carry with you all the time?
Are you talking about an idea or a physical item?
It can be both.
Okay, it's a random question.
I know, it took it gets
Uh,
and don't feel bad. Everyone pauses for, like, 30 seconds. I'm always editing it down, so
so physical item, I'm not a materialistic person,
okay.
but the crux of what I own is a smartphone, headphones, sunglasses, and a water bottle. And those things are on me at all times.
Makes sense, yeah. They're all necessary. Yeah.
And they're necessary because you have to stay hydrated. You have to protect your eyes from the sun. You have to block out the noise from the city.
Hmm.
And you have to make sure that people aren't blowing up your social media or yelling at you because you've missed a payment for something or whatever.
Exactly.
Um, in terms of an idea that you need to keep with you at all times, something that I struggle with, honestly,
Hmm.
is being humble.
Hmm.
Because when you've seen success and had more experiences than the majority of people you'll ever meet on an individual basis, it's easy to put yourself above them,
Hmm.
even if you don't want to. And my mother and father raised me to be very confident in myself. And maybe it's a Jewish thing, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I've struggled with humility my whole life, honestly.
Yeah.
And so I sometimes will come across an experience that allows me to recognize that I've kind of lost some humility and kind of knock myself down a few pegs so that I can
Yeah.
kind of regain it. And I struggle with that because it sucks. It's hard to face that like you're being bad to other people without knowing that you're doing it, without like knowing
Hmm.
that that's not who you are and that's not what you want to be perceived as, and yet it happens anyways
Yeah. It's
sometimes.
tough. Yeah.
So yeah, I think at least for me, I try to keep myself conscious of the fact that I need to be more humble.
Very good answer. So, Sean, where can people find you online? Where's your big watering hole?
Honestly, I hate social media.
I love it. So where can people find you online in general if they want to interact with you?
Uh, so I have a website, welivetobuild.com. There's
Okay.
podcast stuff there. I have a Twitter. If you send me a DM, I'll probably answer it.
Hey,
Um,
truth. Yeah.
I have a LinkedIn. Like generally, if someone like adds me as a contact on LinkedIn or Twitter, I'll look at the message. And if it
Yeah.
seems like someone interesting, I'll answer. If it
Yeah.
seems like they're trying to spam me
Oh God.
or
Yeah.
I don't know what the value would be in responding, I'll probably just delete it.
Yeah. No, that's fair. I mean, social media, everyone has to tackle it their own way. I mean, that's a lot of people don't realize that it is a personal choice, and having control over it is better than it having control over you.
For sure. Oh yeah, one of the things that I've really benefited from is that living in China, I didn't have access to social media from the West because it was all
Yeah.
banned.
Yeah.
And so while everyone over the last decade was like really addicted to all of this stuff, I never became addicted to it because I didn't have access to it.
Yeah. Some serendipity there. Yeah.
Yeah. It's almost like having spent my entire 20s living in the woods.
But learning lots of stuff while there. So
Yes, of course.
that's fantastic. Well, Sean, thank you so much for being on the show, and we'll see everyone next week.
Thanks.
That was a great show. Hey, if you're enjoying Entrepreneurs Enigma, please give us a review on the podcast directory of your choice. We're on all of them, and these reviews really help others find the show. Also, if you're getting value from the show and want to buy me a coffee, go to the show notes and click on the link to help me stay awake while I bring you more great episodes to your ears. That's in the show notes, and I look forward to the next episode. Take care, guys. Goldstein Media hopes you have enjoyed this episode. This podcast is one of the many great shows on the MPN Marketing Podcast Network.
You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? Carrie Barrett hosts a great podcast called The VIQ Project. Carrie, tell us what these fine folks will get out of listening.
Okay, you know how you go to shoot a 2-minute video, except it takes 2 hours, you hate yourself on camera, you don't know what to do with it, and so it doesn't perform? You'll get all the tips and tricks you need to fix all of that on this podcast.
Wow, we're going to be lining up for this. Where can people subscribe?
You can find it on my website, which is carriebarrett.com. You can also find it if you search the VIQ Project Podcast on YouTube. Of course, you can find the show at marketingpodcasts.net, or you can subscribe and search for the VIQ Project Podcast wherever you get your podcasts.
You heard her. Go subscribe. This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.